Game number one for 2024 is at hand for Auburn football. It is time for us to preview and offer predictions for Auburn versus Alabama A&M. Let's get into it. A lot of interaction from you guys and, of course, predictions from us all coming up right now. War Eagle, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of E2C Network Live. This time, a live stream show for you, previewing the first game of the Auburn football 2024 season. We are excited to be back in the saddle doing this again for you this season and ready to have some fun with you all, talking about this game, previewing it a little bit, but maybe even offering some predictions out there. Predictions not just in the form of a score, but predictions in the form of statistics, things that you might need to know, things that might happen in this game. This is just, let's get the table set for the game that is ahead, that being game number one versus the Alabama A&M Bulldogs. And might I add, might I just go ahead and say this? So glad that this is, I don't know if this is their new logo that I'm looking, you can see on the cue card right now here on the screen. But might I add, a much better looking logo for them than the old A and M swiggle lines everywhere, because this one looks pretty good. Even though everybody is a Bulldog these days and everybody is like red and white colors. Anyway, I don't know why we're getting into critiques of logos and stuff. That's not what we're here to do, but just where my mind went for me this evening. So what can you expect in this show? This is a live stream after all. So if you're on the live portion of this show, welcome. Thanks for being here. Smash the like button as you come in. You guys are going to get the biggest benefit out of this portion of the show. You get to interact a little bit. You get to offer opinions and things like that we can kind of bounce back and forth with each other. But if you are on the replay, you can get the value out of what we're talking about here. You just won't get the interactions and stuff. What is on tap for you this evening? We are going to start off our show by giving you some general info, some things that maybe you want to know about the game, about the matchup. Very hard to do in game number one because we haven't seen anything from Alabama A&M. We haven't seen anything from Auburn. But what we do know is that we can take stuff that we've learned about Auburn in the offseason and try to apply it to what is probably going to happen in this game. Nothing is a foregone conclusion, but what we may feel comfortable gleaning from all of this stuff. So we're going to give you some general info. We're going to look at their depth chart a little bit, at least how it's listed right now. We're going to look at I found some things from their SID office about their roster, about how much turnover there's been and stuff like that. That'll give us some better information and go off of what to maybe look out for, what weaknesses there might be. We're also going to look at not the last game, but the ESPN matchup predictor. We'll pull that up at some point. And then we'll get to predictions. And we're going to go through the offense, the defense, special teams, and finally end up with a score prediction. So please, 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 folks, especially for those of you that are live, hold your predictions until we ask for them. We will get there. Slow your roll. I know some of you are just chomping at the bit now to get all those things in. So we'll get started with our agenda here in just a second. I want to say hello to a few people that are popping in live on YouTube, on Facebook. Thank you guys so much for being here. You're about to be inundated with content from E2C Network this weekend, and for the rest of the football season. So I hope you guys are getting used to it. Dalton is enjoying some other football games. And I had a feeling we'd have some conflicts tonight with potential other games that were going on and people's interest in this game. I know as we get to Cal, as we get to really Arkansas is really where the interest is going to kick in. But let's at least do the show. Let's get used to what we're wanting to do for the rest of the week, or at least the rest of the season, I guess I should say. All right, so let's jump into things here. We want to start off by giving you guys some information to work with, to go off of about the game. And this is going to come straight from the SID office for Auburn University, the stuff that we're going to start with, stuff that you want to know about the game. Give me some feedback on if this is legible for you guys with the resolution that we're allowed to shoot at on this particular setup. I think it is, and I've highlighted some things that I think are just personally of note. But maybe as you guys are listening to me talk, if you're reading through yourself, maybe you point out or see some things that are interesting to you, those of you that are watching live. And of course, on the replay as well, any feedback that you might have had. So let's just go ahead and cover it right off at this top. This game is Saturday, the 31st, 6:30 p.m. Central Time. So nice kickoff time. Always love being prime time in Jordan-Hare Stadium. And if you wonder why I'm looking this direction on the screen, I guess is because my screen's over here. It wouldn't be in a perfect world. I'd be looking over here, but that's just not how it works out. So I will be looking off the screen. These are the things that you don't think about till it's too late. All right. So 6:30. The game is on ESPN Plus or SEC Network Plus. There's been a lot of lamenting about that over the past few days on social media. I get it. But folks, there was a day where there was no option for some of these games. Just be thankful that you have one option. Looking at the series for Auburn, and obviously, if you're interested in the play-by-play, you can see on there the play-by-play announcers. I'm not familiar with any of them, and where you can get the local radio broadcasts and things like that. Series Auburn versus Alabama A&M has not happened a whole lot, but you do have 2 games to go off of. Auburn is 2-0 in this series, with the last one being 55-0 in 2016. I remember that game, but that was a long time ago, folks. Almost a decade ago. That's just crazy and wild to think about. Obviously, nobody is ranked right now. Nobody's any rankings that happened are preseason rankings. Nobody's done anything to move up or down the rankings, but that gives you perspective of both teams not being ranked in their respective opportunities to be, that being FCS for Alabama A&M. But you can see that both teams are coming off of losing seasons. Hugh Freeze in his 2nd year and Coach Connell Maynor in his 7th season at Alabama A&M. So it's been an up and down time for Coach Maynor, it seems like. But obviously, this is a much different beast, literally, for them when you're talking about playing SEC competition, much less just FBS level competition. A couple other notes for the game: 132nd season of college football for Auburn, opening up this 2024 campaign. And you are wearing orange, folks. If you didn't get the memo, don't worry about what I am or am not wearing for the game. I might wear some orange. But I will be wearing the E2C Network shirt for the first couple of games this season until I get my new hat that's coming in, or that I hope is going to be coming in soon. But I've worn orange in solidarity for that tonight. Wear orange to kick off on the Plains. Drown out any semblance of red, crimson, whatever they are. I don't know what they call their color, red, from the stadium. All right, series history we talked about a little bit. 2-0 all time for Auburn. They defeated the Bulldogs 51-7 for the first time in 2012. And we already mentioned that 55-0 in 2016. This is the first time that Hugh Freeze has faced Alabama A&M in his 14 years of being a head coach. So first for Hugh Freeze. Let's see if we can get him started off on a good note. A couple other fun notes that kind of come into the discussion point from this game. Auburn's 4-0 all-time versus the SWAC, which is where Alabama A&M hails from in their conference, that being 2 games with Alabama A&M, all victories, and then 2 games with Alabama State, all victories. Sorry, SWAC. Sorry. But there you go. Auburn holds an all-time record of 99, 55, and 2 against teams from the state of Alabama. Now, this is, listen, I know that some of this is not even related to the game, but these are the things that crop up when we talk about some of like the nuances with matchups and stuff like that. So I thought it'd be fun to talk about this. Look, obviously, Alabama State, UAB, Alabama A&M, but then you get into schools maybe that don't exist anymore, one recently, and others that you've maybe forgotten about or didn't know existed at all. Birmingham Southern, Camp Sheridan, Marion Institute, Maxwell Field, the Army base, I guess, Montgomery. I didn't know there was a Montgomery University, North Alabama, AC, and Sanford and Spring Hill. Go figure, y'all. Auburn is 99, 55, and 2 versus the state of Alabama. do with that information what you will. It's just fun little tidbits of information. In August, Auburn is 7-2 playing in this month all time. So pretty good track record there. Thankfully that we haven't had the opportunity to play in this month too much because it's going to be warm. First time in 2 years, just the fifth time ever, the Tigers opened the season with 5 straight home games. Cool note there. Tigers have 799 wins coming into this game, 13th among all FBS schools. I want to put a pin right there, folks. This is game, or hopefully what is going to be win number 100 100 game win 800. And that's going to be a big one, a big celebration, hopefully, if we take care of business the way we should be expected to against an FCS school. No offense, again, Alabama A&M. A couple of final notes here. Auburn season tickets are sold out again for the second time in a row. That's 63,500 with that capacity that you see there. And then you can see some other records there, playing in season openers and then breaking that down into home openers as well, if you're interested in reading some of those things. So that's a couple of notes I just wanted to go through about the game, things going into it. I know sometimes that's not the most interesting thing in the world, but I thought it'd be fun to talk about for a little bit. So now in our agenda, we've talked about the general info. Let's talk about Alabama A&M. Again, we can't really glean a whole lot from this quite yet, but I do want us to try to. So let's look at their depth chart, shall we? Let me pull that up for you guys right now. So this is the listed depth chart as of, let me get to it, as of what they put up online. Who you can see is likely to play. Don't know a whole lot about all these guys, so I'm not going to spend a ton of time analyzing it, but I did want to pull it up straight from their athletic department. Obviously, this is for this game week, so anything that changes is due to injuries, is due to there's decision to change these, but this is the depth chart as expected for now. One of the things that Coach Hugh Freeze has talked about is that quarterback position where there was apparently not a decision publicly made yet on who would be starting. 2 juniors, one is a redshirt junior. So lots of experience. That's obviously something to keep in mind. Both they're fairly big guys, one being a little bit taller than the other. Cornelius Brown, who is listed as the starter on this depth chart at least. So there's that as well. We always look at the running backs. You look at the wide receivers, look how maybe tall they are, 6'4" at the X position. So that's pretty good. And then if you're interested in any other things, you can kind of see that or pause on the replay, or you can pause now on the live if you want to. You'll just be behind in the chat. But wanted to give you guys a little bit of information about the depth chart before we move on to getting to predictions. I know that's where everybody is itching to go to. Let's move on in our particular show here for some more information about the roster. This I found actually most helpful when we're talking about a team that we know very little about, that we don't have a lot of clue about what to think about Alabama A&M, but I did highlight some things. So again, if you can see it, I haven't heard any feedback on if the picture is clear enough for you guys live. So do let me know. This is the first time we're trying it, doing it this way. But obviously can see it very well on my screen over here. But if you want to zoom in or kind of look real closely, you can see some position breakdowns, their lettermans, who's returning, who isn't returning, all these things. So I highlighted some factors here, I think, because I think these are going to be really big, important factors in the game. If you look for starters returning, and this is a team that Coach Hugh Freeze pointed out in his press conference this week that has a lot of transfers in. So how many starters are they returning? On offense, 9 of them. Looks like, and these are people that played at least 4 games, minimum of 4 games starting. So 5 offensive linemen. So it looks like they'll be experienced there. 2 of their wide receivers, a running back, and a quarterback. It says Xavier Langford, starters returning, and he did not show up in the depth chart. So let me go back and look at that real quick. So that's maybe a little bit out of whack there, but at least we'll still look at it. Sometimes all of this stuff doesn't match up exactly right. But 9 starters returning on offense, 5 on defense, and then 2 potential starters as specialist place kickers returning in the special teams category there. Starters lost. Figure that, make that math how you will. But according to this, potential starters they have lost is 4 or 5 on offense, offensive lineman, a quarterback, tight end, wide receiver, another offensive lineman, 7 defensive guys, and it looks spread out amongst, although they did lose a lot of defensive linemen. So what do we make of all this? Is this important in the grand scheme of things? I mean, it is for the team. For us as fans, maybe not, but I hope that it'll give you some perspective of maybe what to be looking for. This is a team that seems to be full of transfers, lost a lot in the transfer portal. So they may have a lot of work to do in terms of coalescing together, especially under the lights, especially in an SEC environment. I don't think it bodes well for them to pull off an upset. I said it. There it is. All right. So there's information that you would find probably interesting about the team. One final thing, and we're getting close to our predictions, fun time of the show. And this is where we want to get interactive, especially live. So do that with us if you are interested in doing that. But the final thing that I want to do is share with you all our screen. Practice a little bit about doing that. So we're going to share the screen and then bring it full screen for you guys. This is ESPN's stuff in regards to this matchup. Again, this is week 1. We don't have a points per game that sometimes is below all that. It's nothing like that's available right now. But you can see, according to ESPN, and I'll scroll up and down for you a little bit right now, Auburn has a 99% chance to win this game. 1% for Alabama A&M. And by the way, there's the old logo too for them, or at least the traditional logo. I'm like the new one better, as I said earlier. So there you go. I think that says all that needs to be said about this matchup, right? 99%. That's basically all you need to know. It's FCS versus FBS. Auburn should take care of business in this particular game. If you're interested in the betting odds and stuff like that, Auburn currently is a 47.5, according to ESPN, favorite as of doing this stream at this time on a Thursday evening. We'll talk about that in a little bit. I obviously don't encourage betting, but it's always fun to talk about the spread and where we think Auburn may or may not be able to match up in regards to that. So keep that in mind if that's something that's interesting to you. And you can see the last couple of games that we played and all the information that you need for the games heading forward. So with that in mind, that is going to be particularly all the information that we wanted to give you to start making informed decisions right now. So what we're going to do from this point forward is we're going to move into our actual put all the stuff up here. I'm still getting used to the pattern of it. Our predictions portion of the show. We have talked about info about the game, depth chart, ESPN matchup, no last game to really talk about. That's probably where we'll do some of that. Let's talk about predictions. Now, again, I will ask, beg, plead for you all to do your best to refrain from skipping ahead, because I want to try to calculate this a little bit with you all. But let's get the typing fingers ready here. And I will ask for scores at the end, but let's just ask the simple question for everybody who's watching live right now. Yes or no, does Auburn beat Alabama A&M? Just type in yes or no. This is an exercise in how we participate in the show. If you guys are not trying to multitask too much and watch the football games that are on right now. I know that's part of the big thing that's going on this evening, but just trying to get you guys used to that. WT even said during the show, or during that portion of the show, in the modern world of college football, schools like Alabama A&M have effectively become the minor leagues of football. Really good players transfer to bigger schools, and some people transfer up to them. So keep that in mind. Yeah, it's just whoever's ready for what particular thing. Latrell says, yes, I like the outfit. Well, thank you. Appreciate that. All right. So we've got some responses here. So let's move forward into our show. We're going to talk about the offense first. We're going to do offense, defense, and special teams in different categories in that. And our goal with this is for us to actually have conversations that will help lead you to a score prediction that is well thought through, that is more informed than just simply saying, Auburn is going to beat Alabama A&M 55-0 like they did last time, which you might be right. But let's talk through it a little bit. So what we're going to start with, and we may change this over the few weeks, but on offense, the categories that I'd like to know. Here's your first question tonight in the chat. I want to know how many passing yards and touchdowns will Auburn have? Now, this isn't how many will Peyton Thorne have, because he's your starter. Get over it for those of you that haven't been able to do that yet. How many passing yards and touchdowns will Auburn and passing touchdowns will Auburn have in this game, in your opinion? What this is going to do is help inform you to your score for Auburn, because we're going to get to another thing in just a second. Again, we have no information to go off of this particular Auburn team, which is going to make the conversation much easier next week. But I'm going to say, while some of you maybe are thinking about it, the passing yardage in this game will hit 300. I would say that touchdowns wise, you're probably looking close to 3 touchdowns. WT seems to agree with me. 300 passing yards, 3 touchdowns. Close, David says 275, 3 touchdowns. So I think so far, the majority of us are looking in that same vicinity. 300-esque, close to 300, 3 touchdowns as a complete thing for the whole passing yardage. Unbeaten Lake says, I wonder if Hugh is willing to air the ball out to see how much the passing game has improved, maybe 300 yards. I think 300 yards would make a lot of people happy, because let's be honest, you're going to have a lot of people that are going to be looking for things to complain about in this game, about a particular player as well. So you kind of have to find that happy benchmark where you got the job done and showed some things. Luttrell says 5 passing touchdowns. So that's 40 points alone just in passing touchdowns right there, and 400 yards passing. If that's the kind of day that they have passing, there should be no complaints from any Auburn fan about the passing game, no matter who it came from. So it's possible. Good prediction. All right, let's cut it off there on passing. Let's go to the next category. How many rushing yards and rushing touchdowns will Auburn have? What say you? How many rushing yards and how many rushing touchdowns will Auburn have? Again, I can't reiterate this enough. This is not about one player. This is about rushing yardage for the team, rushing touchdowns for the team. So as you're thinking about this, again, this is an exercise in being more informed in your predictions. Think about what you just predicted in your passing. And we'll maybe flip-flop this and do rushing sometimes, so it's not like skewing your thought process. But how many rushing yards, how many rushing touchdowns in this game for Auburn? This is an area where you would traditionally look at Auburn doing very, very well and really making a staple for himself. But how well? You've also got to keep in mind that the running back room is down 1 player for the rest of the season. How much do you want to risk hurting some of these guys? Jarquez, Damari, even Jeremiah. I hope we're going to see Sean Jackson a lot. Not because I value Sean Jackson in any way, but because I think we need to see him to feel good about our health, and meaning that I didn't have to play our other guys as much. So WT says 280 rushing yards, 3 to 4 touchdowns rushing, 220 plus 3 touchdowns. WT says I'm still not sold on the offensive line, so I went conservative on the totals. Well, Trail, we're doing this. Remember, we're doing this in bite-sized bits here, so try not to jump ahead too much. But he says 2 rushes with 400 overall yards. So I don't remember where that. I got you. Now but 2 rushes is rushing touchdowns is what you're saying. So try to keep it. Don't jump ahead too much in our exercise here. It's always the struggle here, is trying to get people to. I want to give my score prediction. I get it. Just slow down. We're trying to help you out. I'm going to say that Auburn, and I predicted 300 passing yards. I'm going to say Auburn does 250 rushing yards together. Keep in mind, this is quarterbacks as well, because we know Hugh wants to be able to maximize that as much as you can safely. So I'm going to say 250 rushing yards, and I think 2 rushing touchdowns is a gimme at this point. So that's where I'm going to go on that. All right. Here's some of the nuanced things that are going to really inform how well the Auburn offense may or may not do. How many sacks will be allowed by the Auburn team, the Auburn offensive line, or the team as a whole? Because sometimes it's a running back missed the block, a tight end missed their block, a wide receiver missed the block on the cornerback or something that let them loose to come get them. What do you think? How many sacks do you think that this offensive line is going to allow in this game? Keep in mind, this is a team that and this is why we go through some of this information at the start of the show. This is a team that lost a lot of their defensive line starters. They lost a linebacker as well, it looks like. Doesn't mean that they lost all their talent, but you've got a FBS versus an FCS team. You've got an Auburn offensive line that probably should be more formidable than them. Lost a lot of talent. Did they bring enough in? So what's it going to be? David says 2 sacks. I'm going to guess blindly. Say 4 sacks. We'll see. It won't be blindly anymore because we've helped you think through some of these. I think Auburn is going to probably give up 2 sacks minimum because of, and here's the problem with predicting this in this type of game. The results of the team as a whole are going to be skewed a little bit by what happens when the backups hopefully get in as soon as possible in this game. So I think at some point you're going to get to the point where Auburn's backups are in against some of their probably backups too, but the gap in talent, the gap in formidability is going to be a little closer, not that much closer, but close enough. So I do think that 2 sacks is at least something to be expected in this game. All right, a couple more in offense and we'll move to defense. How many turnovers does Auburn cause? I'm sorry, let me back this up. How many turnovers does Auburn's offense have in this game? How many did they give away? Interceptions, a fumble. Again, we don't know a whole lot about this team right now, so it's really hard to predict. How improved is Peyton Thorne in his passing proficiency / people running the correct route so he doesn't throw it into an open field where someone just jumps in front of and takes it back, or getting hit and that you're getting picked off because it just fluttered into the air as he was releasing it. How many fumbles? That do our running backs take care of the ball? Do our wide receivers? We've got some young wide receivers are going to be out there ready to prove themselves. How many turnovers are going to be out there? I think if Auburn gets out of this game with less than 3 turnovers, that's a good day. Because again, I'm thinking about the potential for these young guys to make mistakes because we're hopefully going to see them a ton. Thinking about these wide receivers. Maybe some of our guys that have been here for a while, but they don't get to play a whole lot, that are just going to be a little bit loosey-goosey with things. WT offers up his opinions here. 4 giveaways due to what I expect to be a lot of backups playing, kind of what I'm saying here. So I think if Auburn gets out of this game with 3 or less turnovers, this is a good day. It's a good day if you don't have any, right? It's a good day if you have 1, maybe. But I just got to think, 2 for David, that 3 is probably the benchmark you would never say to your team, we want none. But if you're the coach and you're like, well, this is who all we played in this game, we got out of here with 3 turnovers, meaning 2 fumbles like in the 4th quarter, we'll be all right. And by turnovers, I meant those that were lost. That's the only ones that I'm counting. There's probably going to be an interception there as well. All right. These are not about stats, but maybe helps you think about the game. And this is one where there could be some variability here. So let's see what you all think. Who is Auburn's top rusher in this game? Who will be Auburn's top rusher? This is where you got to think a little bit because your choices are now limited a little bit more because Brian Battie won't be participating this year. But you got 3 obvious candidates that are going to be seen the bulk of the time. Jarquez Hunter, Damari Alston, Jeremiah Cobb, a quarterback. Who leads in rushing? Hopefully you're not seeing Jarquez as much as maybe we want to see him. Who is your leader in rushing in this game? I'm going to put it to you this way. I don't think it's going to be Jarquez, although I do think he'll get close to 100 yards in this game. I don't think it's going to be probably not going to be Damari. I think those of you that are already dropping in predictions of Cobb, you're probably on the right track. It would not shock me if it's somebody we're not even talking about yet, such as a Sean Jackson or one of the other quarterbacks. Let Hank Brown go out there once business is taken care of by Peyton Thorne and go have some fun. Sling it around, but run it around a little bit. Wants to solidify himself as the number 2 position. That'd be a good way to show that you're not just a throwing quarterback, you're a running quarterback. Although I'm going to lean with you guys on the Cobb prediction as the leading rusher for this game, which will continue to stir up that controversy that was there for a little bit. Is like, is Cobb better than Jarquez Hunter? Not yet, he's not, but he'll be good enough soon enough. All right, let's keep moving along here. Who's going to be our number 1 receiver in this game? Meaning across the board. I know I've said this kind of to people in other chats when people ask who's going to be the best receiver this year. It's hard to quantify that. Just you tell me what that looks like to you. Who's your top receiver in this game? Whether that's the most receptions, that's the most touchdowns, who's going to be the one who has the longest catch, all that kind of stuff. I think your easy answers are sitting right out there for everybody to pick up on. The starters, right? But this is a game. This is a game where you got to think about who may or may not be playing and how often they may or not be playing. I do love that we're starting to get tired of saying Lambert Smith and just say KLS, Keandre Lambert Smith. So it's works. So there's a prediction from David. Keandre Lambert Smith. Probably not a bad pick, although he is nursing a little bit of an injury. And here's the other thing too. I don't know if Latrell's a little bit behind in chat if he meant this for running backs. But what about the running backs leading and receiving? It's not as simple as that. And I guess the question was, who's the top receiver? But a running back can be a receiver too. So you got your Cam Coleman's, your KLS's, Robert Lewis. I have a feeling we're going to have one of these new guys, either like a Caleb Burton go. And Caleb Burton's not new, but and he's been around for a while. It wouldn't surprise me that like he would do something like this. But I think it's going to be one of these guys we're not talking about as much as the leading receiver in this game, whatever that means for you: touchdowns, yards, receptions, the overall picture. But we've gotten probably some of the best options that people think: Coleman, KLS. I'm going to predict it's going to be Robert Lewis. I think obviously coaches do their homework and know that Coleman is who we think he is. They know what Keandre Lambert Smith can do. Want to lock those two down. It's going to open up for a starter to do really well early. I think Robert Lewis is going to be that for us. Appreciate that. Every once in a while, I have a good take. Doesn't mean it's always. There was one game last year. We did this type of exercise, and I think that's why I like doing this. I predicted the game exactly. I mean, obviously there was some variation, but the score was 100% right. It went exactly how I said it was going to. And somebody came back on our post-game show and said, "Kyle, you called that exactly right." It's almost like I talk for a living. Every once in a while, we get this thing right over here. Could be Perry, since Coleman will get so much attention. That's a good take too. Not a bad take. All right, so we're done with offense. Let's move on to defense. There's not as many to do in offense, defense, and special teams, so we'll move a little bit quicker. I know most of you are wanting to get to the score prediction. I'm still rummaging through this in my head a little bit. Defense. How many passing yards and touchdowns, passing touchdowns, will Auburn give up to Alabama A&M? Again, keep in mind, we are playing someone for the first time this season. So are they. We don't know much about each other, but this is FBS. This is FCS. Keep in mind that you're going to be hopefully playing a game where your backups are in after the first series in the third quarter. So keep that in mind. That's something that you're going to want to think about. This would be a good opportunity for this group of defensive backs that are having a lot of expectations put on them because of what left. all that talent, all 5 of those guys across the board minus Keontae are gone. That were utilized frequently. So this is going to be a test for them. 250 to 280 yards, 2 or 3 touchdowns. Is that a bad day for a first game, especially if you're considering some of this is going to happen in, I hate saying it this way, but garbage time? David's a little bit more optimistic. 1 touchdown, 220. I'm going to predict 2 passing touchdowns and at least 200 passing yards for them by the end of this thing. And I think if they hold them to that, you look at who you're playing against, who you're playing at what point in the game for Auburn, and you're probably like, that ain't bad. That is not bad. So there we go. That is passing. Let's do rushing. How many rushing yards and rushing touchdowns does Alabama A&M have in this game? How many is it? Keep in mind, we just talked about your receiving yards and touchdowns. Try to kind of juxtapose that with your prediction now for rushing and for rushing yards and rushing touchdowns. This is another area where there's some question mark. Does Auburn pass rush improve this year? Significantly, slightly. Is the depth good? Does everybody stay healthy? I get the feeling that if Alabama A&M is going to have any success, it's going to be through the air. And so I'm kind of wondering, because you looked at their wide receivers. In fact, let me go back to it for a second. On their starting lineup there, they've got 6'1", 6'1", 6'4". Looks like he was a transfer from Western Carolina. Actually, all of their guys at some point were transfers, one from FIU, one from Western Carolina, one from Jackson State. So all these guys have had some experience, it looks like. Pretty decent sized wide receivers. I think that's where they're going to have success. Their running back is a 5'11" guy, 226 pounds. So not the smallest, not the biggest in the world. But there you go. Oh, look, it's my wife checking in with 100. Are you predicting 100 rushing yards? It's honestly not a bad take right there. David says 145 in terms of rushing yards, no touchdowns. Looks like a lot of you may be agreeing for the most part with our line of thinking here. WT says 180, 200 yards, 180 to 200 yards and 1 to 2 touchdowns due to what I expect to be a lot of garbage time. You say, you got it. You got it. I predicted 200 passing yards, 2 passing touchdowns for them. So I'm going to say that they don't get any more than my expectation and goal is going to be they allow 100 or less rushing yards in this game and just 1 rushing touchdown, because in garbage time, we're going to let them get down there and they're going to rush one in, against our third string. So that's how I think it's going to go down. So right now I have predicted around 350 total yards for them across the game, 3 touchdowns total. Yeah. So that's 21 points right there. That I've potentially said that they probably could get. Now, keep in mind, I'm saying that openly because that doesn't necessarily mean that's what my score is going to be. We're just kind of talking through things to help make better, more informed decisions about your score predictions. Okay. Passing yardage. Let me pull that. We already did that one. All right. Who's going to be Auburn's top tackler in this game? May not be as easy as you think it is. Most people go to Eugene Asante. Some people go to Jalen McLeod, Keldrick Falk. Some people may go to a safety or something like that, cleaning things up if it were people getting into the second level. Is it going to be a starter at all? Here's the problem. I'd love to hear what you guys think. I don't know who it's going to be. I don't think it's going to be any of the starters because, again, my hope is that we're seeing these guys, the starters, play so little comparatively to everybody else. So it'll probably be one of our linebackers, and it's probably going to be Robert Woodyard, who's come along during fall practice. Wouldn't surprise me if it's going to be him. It looks like, I think in our depth chart, it was Dorian Masai Jr. and Eugene and Austin Keys, if Austin is healthy. were going to be the starter. So I don't think it's going to be either. I think Austin's going to be probably not played a whole lot. So it wouldn't be him, I think. It's probably going to be a guy like Robert Wood, DeMarcus Reddick. Anybody? I know a lot of people have been excited about him based on what you've heard. But there you go. Falk, maybe, with a question mark. WT says, I don't think it'll be a starter. Be a third string player. And it may just be a second string player. Somebody that comes in just to give somebody a breather, even when they're got the starter still in. So, maybe a DeMarcus Reddick, maybe a Robert Woodyard. I think I'm going to go Robert Woodyard. I'd like to see him after being here a couple of years and kind of not getting lost in the depth chart, but just not breaking through as much. I'd like to see him have a breakout game. This is one of those games where you're really looking for things like that. All right, last thing in defense. And this one's a little bit kind of out there, so you predict it how you would want to. But I'm asking, how many sacks does Auburn have on – how many Auburn sacks does Auburn get against their offense? How many fumbles does Auburn cause, and how many cause/get, because we're going to just call them recovered, or however you want to do it. You can do recovered versus caused. And how many interceptions do they get? And this, was this a prediction for tackler J.C. Hart? Don't forget about Champ Anthony either at the star position. How many fumbles, how many sacks, how many INTs, those things that you need to happen in a game to really dominate, especially at home. I think sacks are going to do very well for us. I'm going to predict 5 sacks for us. I'm going to predict 3 caused fumbles, 1 recovered, and at least 1 interception. That's what I kind of feel about. David's got 4 sacks, 2 fumbles, 2 picks. It's a mistype, but I got it there. WT's got 4 to 5 sacks, 3 fumbles, 2 recovered, 3 interceptions. Some of you are a little bit more bullish on your predictions with those, but hey, it's your predictions. This is a team you probably could take advantage of, but there you go. So there's some predictions for that particular aspect. All right, one last group to go to. We're right on time here as well to get to our final score prediction. So hang on tight here. Let's do this last stuff. Special teams, because this is important in the game. And this, I think, is probably, in my opinion, in determining your score, maybe I wouldn't say the most important special teams aspect, but people don't think about this enough. How many punts does Auburn have in this game? How many times does Auburn have to punt? Because if you're having to punt a lot, it means their defense is doing things to you. If a guy doesn't have to punt at all, it either means 2 things. You're scoring a lot or you're turning the ball over a lot. I don't think Auburn's going to turn over the ball a ton in this game. At least the starters won't. But I do think we're going to have some punting happening in this game. So what are we looking at? What's your prediction on that? I think if we get off less than 4 punts in this game, by the end of it, we're in good shape. And if you know what, I'm going to be honest. I want 1 punt with the starters. I'm going to allow 1 punt. That's it. So it either needs to be score or turnover. I don't care. However you want to do it. 3 to 4 punts, 3 to 4, 3 to 4. Looks pretty consistent across our chat. So there you go. All right, let's keep moving forward. Special teams. How many field goals attempted and made? Keep in mind, Alex McPherson is not playing in this game, according to Coach Hugh Freeze, as of yesterday on the SEC teleconference. No Alex McPherson. Towns Magoo looks good to go based off of A-Day, what we've seen little of him in fall practice. Doesn't like we have much to worry about there. So you should feel pretty good about your kickers. That shouldn't really worry you at all, but it is the first time against a big crowd that's going to happen. I mean, he's literally last season playing for Auburn High in Sanford Duck Stadium, which is like a quarter of the end zone. I don't know what the actual amount is of Jordan-Hare Stadium, but how many field goals are attempted and made? We have got 3 of 3, 3 for 3. We have got 3 for 3 as well from our chat here. 3 for 3. I think there will be 2 attempted. He's going to go 100%. There you go. Nope, just a flat out 100%, not a numbers. I think that he will get 2 attempts and he will make 1 out of 2. I know, look, he's given us no reason to think that, but I'm trying to put myself as a former kicker in his shoes and try to think about what might be going through his head, his heart, his racing, and thinking about this is my moment to kind of not separate myself from Alex, but to show that I deserve to, start as well or get some type of role. Because for a while there, I thought we were setting him up to be our next punter, but as you've seen from our recruiting class, that doesn't seem to be the case. So I don't know. We'll see. With that in mind, I'm going to predict 1 of 2. 2 field goals attempted, 1 made, because we're going to see how much that how strong that leg is under pressure with a big crowd. I've seen you kick on video games. You should not compare yourself. Let me tell you this. There ain't a kicker out there that will play in college football 25 and say that it's easy. They definitely made this game a little bit more challenging, and that is one of the aspects of it. So anyway, so there you go. All right, so we have made it through the offense. We have made it through the defense. We have made it through the special teams. We have made it through different aspects of receiving, rushing on both sides of the ball, turnovers on both sides of the ball, sacks, fumbles, interceptions, punts, field goals, top tacklers, rushers, receivers. All of that stuff has led us to this point in the show, about 45 minutes into it, where we are going to offer our final score predictions for the game. And I'm going to be honest with you guys. I utilize what we talk about here a lot to kind of form those opinions a little bit better. I ain't got no clue. Excuse the grammar. History tells you so you guys can offer your score predictions now as you see fit. I'm sorry about the dinging. There is a family chat going off, and for whatever reason, they come through on the phone and it's not actually, you know what? I don't need that on. So it doesn't matter. Okay. So what's your score prediction? What do you got? This will be the 3rd meeting. The last 2 meetings, Auburn has scored 50 or more. 50. Let me go back to it and just quote it verbatim to you guys. Last 2 times that we played was 2012, 51-7, 55-0 in 2016. That was 4 years removed from each other, and this one will be 8 years removed from each other. So precedent has been set that 50 points is possible. Coach Derek Nix, the offensive coordinator, wants his offense to average 40 points per game, so that's got to start here, and you would hope to help in that averaging that they would get beyond that into the 50s. So given the expectations of Derek Nix, and I know that's probably a lofty goal, but if he wants to reach that, he's thinking about things like this. I'm going to predict that the Tigers do hit the 50 mark. I'm going to say, and I'm trying to think back to what I predicted here. I think I predicted 3 passing touchdowns, 2 rushing. Doing the math is hard. So that's 30 points right there alone. I think we're going to have a turnover for a touchdown. So that's 36 of those points right there. And obviously there's going to be probably a field goal in there, 39. So that's about 11 points at least that I haven't counted for based on some of my predictions. So obviously there's a touchdown, of a receiving, of a turnover, of all that fashion, a kickoff return. We didn't even talk about that aspect of it. But I do think that Auburn will crack that 50 point margin. I do think they're going to give up more points in this game just because of the unknowns for both teams. If this was an Auburn team and a Coach Hugh Freeze team that had been around for a while, I would say they're probably going to shut them out. But I think we're still in some instability times right now. So I will say Auburn wins 52. Oops, somebody else had 52. A bunch of you had 52. Auburn wins 52-20. In garbage time, we give up 2 touchdowns. We only give up field goals with the Stars. 52-20, a 32-point win should be very, very convincing. Let's see some of y'all's. 48-10, 56-24, 52-0, 42-14, 52-13. So everybody, well, not everybody. We've got two that don't expect us to hit the 50 mark. But hey, that's nothing to get upset about because you're still having us 50, 42, 48. That's several touchdowns. WT has the highest amount of points allowed, similar to me, with 20. Everybody else is 14 or below. So I think we could kind of make a composite average of all of these things. I'm not doing the full math in my head, but it looks like we could expect us to get close to 50 points in this game, if not 50 exactly. And probably give it up based on our guesses, close to 10 points a game, or 10, not a game, but 10 points across our predictions. So my prediction, 52-20. I'm going to just say an arbitrary group prediction based on what I've seen here with very minuscule math done. 50-10. There you go. All right. So that is our preview and prediction show. Don't go away just yet. We'll spend the last few minutes hanging out with you guys, answering comments and questions. So if you enjoy that type of stuff, stick around for that. Let me give you the rundown of what to expect here. I've got a couple of comments from you guys that I've marked to talk about on the back end here too, but keep them coming. What's coming up next for E2C Network and Auburn stuff? Boy, oh boy, folks, it's here. I'm so excited. I'm going to Auburn tomorrow, barring anything changing, schedule wise, things happen. But here are some things that you have to look forward to this weekend. These are the things that we are currently planning on doing. There may be more, but I want to make sure that you're aware of those things. If you enjoy Tiger Walk, YouTube is the place to be. Auburn, Alabama A&M game, Tiger Walk will be broadcast live, barring any unforeseen changes, connection issues, things like that. Hasn't really been a problem the last couple of years, but I got that feeling something's going to go down. But Tiger Walk on YouTube should be at 4:30. They usually do it 2 hours before kickoff. Join us on YouTube. I'll try to put it out on other avenues when we get the opportunity to, but there you go. Tiger Walk. After that evening, we will do a post-game reaction show. There is no set time for this. The best thing you can do is be subscribed. If you go when we make the page for this or the preview here on YouTube for it, you can like it, obviously, to get yourself and hit a notify me bell so you know when we're going to go live for that. It will be late. It will be late. Let me say it again. It will be late. Game kicks off at 6:30 Central Time. An average game is 3.5 hours, 4 hours. So that puts us in the 2:30 round by the time we get done with Tiger Walk at 11:30. We're probably looking at somewhere between 11:30 and 12 at best case scenario getting to that because we've got to capture a few media things. So I hope you guys are ready to stay up late. If not, catch the replay, but we'd love to see you live. And after all that, after an amazing weekend in Auburn, we are going to have the Auburn Experience show back here in studio. I will travel back, rush back here after just a exhausting weekend, but a great weekend to the Auburn Experience episode 92. Austin will not be with me this week, but we'll have a special guest. And even if I'm not able to get a special guest, we'll do a live show of some sort to kind of round out our thoughts and may just, we'll make it work is basically what I'm getting at with you. All right, there you go. That's the main show. That's the main stuff we want to talk about. You now kind of take center stage for however long you'd like. If there's not any other things that you'd like to talk about, we can start to wind down our show. But I always like to leave room for this, for those that were watching live, especially. Corey said this a little bit earlier. I'm going back to some of our comments. Let's hope Hunter has his act together this season, and it took half a season for him to find his groove. Now, listen, I don't think Hunter's going to have a problem with any of that this season. I think he's going to really look at what this is, his last opportunity to make a name for himself at Auburn and solidify that name. And I think he's going to take us in. We're going to have one of the first times in a while where a running back makes his name known on it, like puts his stamp on a team. I'm talking about like Kerryon Johnson level stuff here. Hopefully he can stay healthy because we need the running back room to stay healthy at this point. I think he's going to take it seriously. WT said a little bit earlier, if you are betting, take the under. We didn't talk about that, so I need to remember that. So the over under right now is 47.5 in Auburn's favor. So do you take that? Clearly, I have said under based on my score. Again, not doing betting, but there you go. It's the first game of the season. The team needs the time to get on the same page. I'd take the under this year if you're interested in that type of stuff. All right, let's see what you guys are saying. A couple other updates on games and things like that. I definitely will go check out some of these games when we're done here. WT says, I think Hunter took time to find his groove because it was a totally new offense to learn. He also had some issues in the season to start off the season last year. So there's that aspect of it as well. A new team, a new year, a new offense, not the best start in the off season. All that's fair to say about the Hunter situation. But that's the great thing about this year and about this opportunity for him to capitalize on what lies before him. All right, folks, let's call it a show. That was a great first preview show. I know that obviously there'll be a lot more interest in these as we get further into the season to some of the more prominent games and when there's not a ton of the first Thursday night of football on tonight. But thank you all to our live viewers who joined us. For those of you that are on the replay that made it this far, thank you guys so much for being here and supporting what we do. You guys are the best little family within the Auburn family, and I do mean that from the bottom of my heart. You are the reason we do, and what we do is orange and blue here at E2C Network. Thank you for joining me. Can't wait to see you on campus if you're going to be there this week. And if you're a Concord Club member, you know some good stuff's coming up for you guys, especially at that Eagle tier level. Till then, War Eagle.